right, everyone. How are you? You ready to do this? Welcome to this week's episode of our podcast. It's breakfast included. On the show this week is our front of house engineer, Tom Wood. Tom just joined the team. What's this? It's June. Are we in June, May, April-ish? March? Anyway, he just came on board and he's doing a great job. He hasn't been doing this long in the sense of being in this industry, but he's worked for some of the biggest artists, Shawn Mendes, Journey, and now Duran Duran. He's a humble guy. He tells you exactly what you need to hear, ask you what you need. He tells you what he needs. On top of that, like I said, he's a really nice guy. I learned a lot about him. He talked about how he got started and what he's doing now. All right, guys, I hope you enjoy it. Let's check it out. All right, man. Tell everyone who you are.
I'm Tom Wood, and I'm a sound engineer for Shawn Mendes, Journey, and Duran Duran.
From your accent, you're from Texas?
That's it. How did you know, man? Yeah. Big Longhorns fan.
Southern
yeah.
Right?
No, I'm from a part of the UK that I highly advise you stay away from, Coventry. So, yeah.
So you're kind of like Texas.
No, man. No, the food's not as good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. If it had some good barbecue, then that'd be fine. Exactly.
All right, you're a front of house guy, man. How long have you been doing that?
I've been doing it since I was about 16, 17. So I'm 30 now, so about, give or take, 15 years, something like that. Been touring for 10. So
10 years?
10 years, man, yeah. Started out nice and young.
Yeah, were you in a band or anything when you were young?
I was, yeah. I was in a band. I was in a band called The Strikes, and I actually played bass guitar in that band. And we didn't make it, man. I'm sorry to say. Yeah, if you haven't heard of us, I'm not surprised.
The Strikes.
The Strikes.
Is it because the Strokes hit it big? And
I think that's the main reason why, actually. Yeah, 100%.
These questions are they're only going to get dumber.
No, I like it. Yeah. On reflection, why did we pick that name? Don't know, but there you go.
What do you play?
So I play piano primarily. Obviously, I played bass in that band, but piano was the main draw for me. And I played that since I was super young, like 6, something like that.
How'd you end up in Canada?
I ended up in Canada because I always knew that I wanted to work in music. And coming from Coventry and living there, unfortunately, as much as there's some good musical exports from Coventry, the Specials being an obvious one, it's hardly the musical epicenter of the universe. So the second option was London, which is what most people would have done, what most of my friends did that wanted to work in music. Yeah. And at the time, I just fucking hated London. And don't get me wrong, it's very much grown on me now. It's fine, but it was just not my vibe back in the day. So I thought I just want to go to America and then everything will be fine, I guess. I was like, Los Angeles would be great, New York would be great. Any of the sort of decent, culturally big cities over there would be awesome. So I found a university course there. I was accepted on a course at NYU. But as an international student, there was no financial support, anything like that. And tuition fees were wild. It would have been a visa on top of that, all sorts of stuff. And it just wasn't feasible.
Yeah. The typical red tape.
The red tape, man. Yeah, 100%. Unfortunately did not come from a background that was incredibly wealthy or any of that kind of stuff. So I gave up and went to Canada. No, I was able to find a program in Toronto that was just a year long. For me, in no way am I slating the school thing. It's really important for a lot of people and it can be really great. And the standard of schooling when it comes to sound engineering has improved so dramatically over the years. But for me, it was about being somewhere that was relevant to music and making contacts. Yeah. So Canada was far more approachable. It was more financially viable for me. But the plan was that I'd only go for a year, do the program, come back home, figure it all out. And I didn't. I stayed. And that was 10 years ago.
Right on.
Yeah.
Right on. And your first gig was with a cat named Shawn Mendes.
Well, my first big gig, I did loads of little ones in Canada.
What did you do before?
I did a couple. I did Dragonette for a bit, and I did Chaos was the other one, who's a hip hop artist. Yeah. And I got real lucky that I was able to cut my teeth on something that was, how can I put it? That tour was a little loose around the edges. And I think that I was able to sort of glaze over a lot of my own mistakes based on the sort of nightmare that was the whole project. Yeah, so that was great. I took that on super young. I think I'd just turned 20 or that sounds about right. I think I was 20 and I TM'd FOH, which is for so many people the way that you get to just doing the one of the two that you want to do at a pro level, you know? I was so underqualified to do that gig, man. There were buses and things. I'd never been on a tour bus before, and I sort of just rolled in day one as the tour manager, quote unquote, and I didn't even know what a tour book was. That was the first major. Well, that was the first.
The Mendes gig.
That was the Chaos gig, okay. Man. That's the first real tour that I cut my teeth on, where it's like, you know, touring like we would conceptualize it now. We're sat on the bus having this chat, and yeah, it was an epic failure, but I learned a lot from it. You know, I always knew that sound was what I wanted to do, though. Tour management for me, although I sort of had an aptitude for it, it doesn't give me. I'm not passionate about it in the way that I am about sound. Yeah. So yeah, I started working at a bunch of local venues in Toronto.
To be a thing like front of house TM.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah, especially in a Canadian market as well.
Yeah.
There's
and
just
Nashville.
Yeah, big time.
Nashville's a big TM front of house merch. Do it all.
Yeah. You know. You got to draw the line somewhere. I mean, for example, I would never drive if I was TMFOH. If we weren't on a bus and we were doing like a van thing or whatever, for example, I'd never like mix a gig, have tour managed all day, and then be like, great, I'll drive to the hotel, because I think that's crazy. So there's stuff where, you know, I would say this is enough now, but at the same time, it's still hard to avoid this if you're on the way up. You have to kind of dual roll somewhere, probably. Yeah. You know, so yeah, but. That sort of led me to working with a lot of mid-level Canadian artists, and a tour manager on a gig that I was working on, knew Shawn Mendes' tour manager, recommended me, and the rest is history. Yeah.
But he wasn't Shawn Mendes yet, right?
Oh, no. Well, when I got the phone call, I had no idea who Shawn was. Yeah. You know, I wouldn't, if you'd been playing me his music, I wouldn't have known. So when I took the phone call from Shawn's tour manager, or in fact, it wasn't even from Shawn's tour manager. This was from the guy that recommended me. Welshie, great TM, awesome guy. And he said, you know, there's this new lad. He's doing really well. He's out on a little tour at the moment, but it's nothing huge. You know, he's doing like House of Blues style stuff, theaters, that kind of thing. But he's got some bigger stuff coming up, and they need a TM and they need a front of house engineer. The PM and a front of house engineer, production manager and front of house engineer. I said, okay, I haven't really done the PM thing so much, but, you know, front of house, that's fine. And he said, okay, great. He was really, really, really awesome about this. He's like, you know, I think you should go for it. If you need any help on the PM front, you can ask me. I'll support you. Really nice. I said, okay, then I could be up for this. And he really sort of convinced me into it. As we're finishing up the phone call, he said, have you got any stadium experience? Like, stadium experience? What are you talking about? He's like, it's not a big deal, man. I'm here to help. But yeah, the first shows are all with Taylor Swift opening up for her on what was the 1989 tour. And I don't really know how I reacted to that or responded to that, but somehow the phone call ended and I was the guy. So that was that.
Yeah.
But I'm pleased to say I didn't fuck it up, but I definitely didn't know. Like, I hadn't really even done arenas at that point. You know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't like
straight from like small.
I went straight from like theaters, that kind of stuff. Yeah. You know, maximum maybe 3,000 cap
She's
theater.
Done pretty well for herself too since then.
Who's that?
Taylor Swift.
Never heard of her. Yeah, she's doing all right, isn't she? Yeah.
What was that like, man? Going into stadiums? I mean,
wild, to be honest with you. I have a vivid memory of the first one. Vivid. It was Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And I've since become a massive Tigers fan, a massive New Orleans Saints fan. Love me some football. Anyway, I digress. So it was a brutally hot day, start of the summer, as you would expect for a US stadium tour. I remember walking into front of house and met Taylor's front of house engineer, Dave Payne, who is a lovely guy, super accommodating, and meeting the systems engineer, Verta. I think I was just very honest. I didn't want to bullshit anyone. I just went in and said, look, I haven't really mixed in a stadium before. I wasn't about to tell them I hadn't done any arenas or either, but, and I remember the systems engineer just kind of looking at me being like, oh, you'll be fine. Just put a graphic EQ on it. I was like, cool. I don't know if that's the advice I was looking for, but I'll take it. That's great. And there were a lot of people for Shawn's soundcheck at front of house. Taylor's manager, Roger, was there. Obviously all of Shawn's team, stuff like that. So it was like, oh man, it was high stakes. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, you just go into into doing your job, and I turned it on, turned it up, and did what I thought was a good mix of what was happening. Taylor's team are really involved in making sure that the entire show, meaning the supports as well as Taylor, are all fantastic. So they care about the production, and this was a real learning experience for me as well. They care deeply that the second that a fan walks in the door from the supports onwards, that it's a hell of a show, which is really cool. They don't let the supports flounder. They're very supportive of the support acts, but they also want to make sure that it's sounding good for the context of the evening. So I remember Taylor's manager going over to her front of house engineer and whispering something, and her front of house engineer came over to me and said, sounds really good. Taylor's manager's just wondering if you could bring the high pass filter up a little bit or whatever. I said, yeah, of course. I do anything he wants. What the hell? Yeah, of course. Did that. And then I sort of we're in a little tent. So I walked out and took a listen and make sure I wasn't doing anything crazy. And yeah, it sounded, I guess it sounded good.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
When her manager came over and whispered to his, do you think her manager knew what a high pass filter was? Or do you think they asked the front of house engineer, hey, the dee-dee-dee-dee-dee, and then he knew what it was and came and asked you?
So here's how high the stakes were. That's a great question, man. He did know because he's an ex-sound engineer.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, he worked with Def Leppard and stuff like that back in the day. That whole team is
because managers sometimes go out there and they go, "Can you turn up the?"
Yeah, they don't have a clue. No, I know. Like they know what they want in their own head, but in terms of,
I think they need more monitor in their monitor.
Exactly. Yeah.
That kind
No.
So that's
no, it was a very specific request. That's exactly what he wanted, which is helpful. I'd much rather it be that way. He knew.
It's helpful to have a team out there that's kind of knows what's going on.
Yeah.
Because a lot of time, management's so disconnected from what you do,
right,
and from what we do.
Right, exactly.
Why can't the tech sell merch during the show? Like, can't we get the guy to do both?
Right. There's pros and cons to that.
Gig.
Get out, really?
I was Guitar Tech's merch guy.
No.
I sold merch before and after the show.
Oh, dude. Well, there you go. That's the dual role thing, man. Look at you now, living the dream.
Me.
Yeah. But yeah, it went well. There were high fives all around. Soundcheck was great. And then insane rookie mistake. I can't believe it. But I remember leaving front of house, really happy with myself, heading back to the bus. I looked down and realized that I'd lost my fucking pass. So day one on Taylor Swift, I had to walk into the production office. They were real sweet about it, man. Her head of venue security, Marty, was an absolute legend. He's just like, look, here you go. Let's not continue this conversation. Just don't do that again.
First one's free.
The next one's a big fucking deal. You know what I mean? The next one's like, we're changing all the passes kind of vibe.
That type of tour, you would have
you're not messing around. They were great. That camp was awesome. I still look back though and I'm like, how the fuck did I pull that off? Yeah. But I did, so here we are.
So you were with Shawn. You got to watch him climb.
We got to do the ride there, the ride up.
What was that like, man? Because that cat, he came... He's a pretty big deal now.
He's a pretty big deal.
Big deal.
And
for that being your first major gig, you didn't have... you had the luxury of doing what you did, but you didn't kind of step ladder it. Like, you hadn't done arenas before.
Right, exactly. So how was it? I guess there's two answers. Like, the professional answer is it was great because we were able to do the climb at the same pace. So, he was experiencing his first arenas, I was experiencing mine. And we were very honest with each other about the challenges that we felt existed, and we worked through them together. And that was awesome. On a completely different level, it was a lot of fun, man. Like, I'm so lucky that I had that experience. And I think the thing is, it's rare in the music industry these days to have the progression that he had that was very linear. It's like, okay, he arrived on the scene and very quickly was big and then was able to carry that momentum in a real sort of like, he just climbed the stairs one after the other. It's like, okay, what's the next big thing that you would do? What's the next big thing that you would do? And there weren't a lot of plateaus in that. We just went from zero to hero in a matter of like, a few years. And I guess that sort of culminated in 2019 with him headlining his first stadiums himself, It was the best time. I think that also looking back now, I was thinking about this the other day. It's a real lesson for you have to be the right personality to be on a gig, but just touring in general, because back in the day, it was me and Shawn and a few other guys on a bus together, and we did that setup for 2 to 3 years. If we hadn't got along, it wouldn't have mattered how good my mixes were. Yeah. I would have been out the door, and I totally get why. But yeah, we lived the dream for a bit. All the sort of rock and roll stuff that you think, the private jets, just the partying and the fun, I don't regret a second of it. And it's nice to have had that. And it's also nice to have come out of that realizing that I love sound engineering, and that it's a career for me, and not just, I want to go out and tour and have loads of fun and that would be great and then come home and whatever. Like, it enabled me to realize that the work part of it for me is as important as having fun and doing all of that kind of stuff. But I wouldn't change it though.
What's crazy is the upward mobility that you did with Shawn, and then the private jets and all the party and everything, that could really jade someone really quick to thinking, okay, I'm on this level now, everyone's below me. You are very humble. I mean, I've been around not just sound engineer, I've been around other techs that they've been up here and they still think they're up here, and they can't bring themselves down to the. It's kind of like when a session guy doesn't play to the gig, he plays for himself. Like, that happens with techs and engineers. Like, they can't support the gig. It's like, well, I did this, so I'm
Man, you're never bigger than the music. You know what I mean? Like, the greatest skill that any sound engineer should have is empathy, I think. If you can't ever I can see how it happens. I can see how you get momentum as a sound engineer and you end up with a bunch of clients, and then better. And sometimes there are moments where, asserting your opinion is really important, but at the same time, man, touring's also really hard. And if you're just a dick to the people around you, then that's no fucking fun for anyone either. You know what I'm saying? Like,
but there's a difference between demanding respect and commanding respect.
Sure.
And like like I said, you being humble, you command a sort of respect just by the way you present yourself.
I really appreciate that, The bottom line is the mix has to sound really good. That's my job here. Yeah. And if it does, that will speak for itself. Yeah. And everything that comes after that is whatever that is. But at the end of the day, what comes out of the speakers is me. That's it, and I just don't believe that you have to be a difficult human being. Sometimes maybe a tiny bit, but you don't always have to be a difficult person to achieve a really great sounding show. And honestly, I would much rather have a great relationship with everyone on the team, the backline guys, the musicians, and achieve it that way than walk in and say, no, it can't be this sucks, this is wrong, because what's the point? Yeah, that's my take.
Right on, man. What did you do after Shawn?
So when Shawn decided to take a break, which I incredibly sort of proud of him for. It was disappointing, obviously, but that is...
It's a hard decision to make.
Man, I can't imagine how hard that was for him, especially because COVID had just happened. Yeah. And so there's this expectation that everyone in the music industry has just had this relaxing break, let alone the fact that it was fucking terrible for everyone.
Yeah.
And obviously we're just looking at that from a financial point of view right now for us, but for someone like Shawn or any artist, obviously there aren't the same financial concerns. I'm sure there were some, but
now you could lose some heat.
Dude, big time. A lot of shit went down over COVID for everyone, and it wasn't just a case of who is financially secure and who isn't. There's a lot of mental health issues tied up in the whole thing. Bottom line, I think Shawn made a great decision, and I'm proud of him for doing it. And I think that when he does decide to come back, he's going to be stronger because of it. What did I do after Shawn? So when that cancelled, I'd already done a little bit of work with Journey. Okay. And so I was able, thankfully, to just transition straight back into that gig. And I was there, still am there, balancing Journey and Duran Duran right now. So
right on.
Yeah.
And then from Journey to Duran Duran. So so you're 10 years in, and here you are.
Here I am.
You've done the new kid on the block, who's huge.
Right.
And you're working with a couple of legacy acts.
Yep.
That's not an insult. That's what Journey and Duran are.
Yeah.
Duran puts out new music, so I don't consider them a legacy act, but...
No, I hear you. Do you? I mean, I don't think of that as a negative thing at all. In fact, it's one of the greatest compliments a sound engineer could receive. Could you imagine how proud I am that a band that has been around for 40 or 50 years is trusting someone who wasn't even born to communicate their music. You know what I mean? That's an honor. Yeah.
What's it like, along with Journey and Duran, like you may not be a fan, but what's it like, because you got to watch Shawn and his hits like chart, and then what's it like coming into a camp and going like, these are the fucking radio hits,
right?
You know?
Yeah, great question.
To listen to
dude,
them.
it's very
were you
different.
a fan of Journeys? Or were you?
I was a fan of Journey, definitely. Not like a super fan, but I knew the hits in a way where I loved them. You know what I mean? I can remember the first time I heard Faithfully, and I just thought it was wildly good. Like I still think that's one of the great songs of all time. Anyway,
it is a great road song.
That's it. Great road song.
It's I'm a huge fan.
Yeah,
it could be a Journey podcast from here on out.
Man, I don't know if I could. We might need to pause this for a second. No, but it is. It's a great road song. Oh my god. I know John Cane wrote that song quite literally on a bus as well. It really is one of those songs where I think for what we do, it's very relatable. Yeah. But yeah, it's a very different vibe, as you were saying, going from mixing something that's current, like, this single has just come out and that's what you're mixing and that's it, versus going through a back catalogue of some of the biggest hits of all time, whether it's Journey or Duran. There's a different kind of stress and pressure to it. So for Shawn, I want to make sure the fans have a great time.
Yeah.
There's, there needs to be an energy to it, an atmosphere to it, but you have some creative freedom in a world like that where as long as it sounds really good, that's great. Yeah. For something like Duran or Journey, fans have been listening to some of these songs for 30, 40 years, and they know details that, if I'm hitting play on something for the first time, I'm like, how could I possibly get into the head of someone who's lived their life through these songs?
Yeah. Some of those fans, they can tell you, Houston 78, right up here, Neil's going to turn his guitar up. Yeah. They know all those nuances. These super fans, they know all those nuances, especially with that band.
Yeah.
So you're kind of catering to them
completely, man. There's a different kind of I feel a pressure from that, and I like it. It's great because I've learned a lot. It has pushed me to be so much better. Building Duran for a start, dude. Every goddamn song is a different mix. It's not like you can sort of get away with a little more on Journey where some of the stock sounds stay the same. Duran's one of those bands where the sound of Duran is as much a part of the song as anything else is, the musicality of it as well. For me, it's a deeply rewarding gig as a musician first to be able to come in, and there's almost a sound design element to it. When you listen to some of the snare samples, what's going on with drum loops, all of that kind of stuff, it's wildly exciting for a sound engineer, man. But also the pressure is fucking huge because these fans know it, man.
Yeah. And I wish we have a new monitor engineer, Dalton, and I wish he was here so I could ask him. You guys came in just cards stacked against you. You came in, you had
I didn't 4
sleep
for weeks,
with the band, right? While you were trying to figure it out on the road with Journey, trying to figure out this mix. Is that I would ask you, is that a normal thing for an engineer? But you just told me like your trajectory, but is that something you prepared for? Like, I may get a call and I got to go in and mix this band. Like Dalton came in blind, almost,
right?
But you did as well,
right?
In a way, is that something that challenges you, or is that something that makes you like, what did I get myself into? I could be flipping burgers.
I think that. Or,
I don't have to think about this if I'm asking someone their order.
Yeah, dude.
But is it challenging to you? Does it make you like?
Yeah, I mean, you got to be the right personality type for this. So to take Shawn as part of this in context, weeks of rehearsals, months of rehearsals before something would come out. And that's a pop thing in general, especially once you get to a bigger show. And then Journey, no. I got sent tracks, figure it out in 4 days, whatever. Duran in some ways was even harder because the material that I got sent was no longer really very relevant, but it was what I had.
Yeah.
I can definitely say this. I really poured every fucking ounce of energy, love for sound, passion, whatever, however you want to describe it, into making Duran sound good, and it paid off. But the cost of that was also big, Like I really, really spent a few weeks where I just didn't sleep enough, got super sick, like all of the things to make sure that we came out the gate with something that was presentable. Also, when you go back into some of the previous engineers on this gig, like Snake, he is a fucking legend and an incredible engineer. I really love Snake. I love, oh man, what a mad scientist. But the pressure is not just making it sound really great in the moment. This is a Tom Wood mix that should be great. This is also like, I don't want to let other peers down that have given me a seal of approval for this gig because they are heavyweights, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this was a different vibe coming into this, but I definitely did consider saying no. In fact, I think I did say no at one point, and was convinced to do it. And I'm glad that I was. It goes back to understanding in this industry when to say yes to something that's fucking crazy and make it work versus, this is actually something that will be a negative thing to my progression or my career, Yeah. So, yeah.
Right on, man. Ever had any nightmare gigs?
Oh, yeah.
What's I have one. I mean, I've had a lot of nightmare gigs, but one that stands out. We just did the UK. We didn't do Bournemouth.
Yeah.
That's my worst gig ever. Whenever we see Bournemouth, actually, John will text me and is like, "Are we going to be okay tonight?" That's how bad the gig was.
Right. Yeah.
and
God, that's never a good start.
2011.
Yeah.
12, somewhere around there.
Right.
But here we are, 2023.
Well, I guess it worked out. Yeah.
But it's still in both of our heads.
What? Well, I'm really curious to know more about Bournemouth. What was so bad about it?
Oh, man, we were doing it. It was very Spinal Tap. From what I remember, they went into the song "Come Undone."
Yep.
It was very intermittent. Wasn't a wireless.
Yep.
We couldn't figure it out. But through the whole song, it's like, and he's looking at me, and I'm like, I'm gonna get it fixed. I mean, and just as they end the song, the bass comes on.
Oh, perfect.
And it's very Spinal Tap-ish.
Yeah.
But what seemed like forever in an arena was only maybe a minute.
Right.
Right. And then that nothing you did fixed it. It just kind of happened.
Right.
So this is Gremlins.
Yep.
And I just remember that you feel like the crow's all looking at you.
Dude, that's like the worst. Well,
he is looking at you like, fix it.
Right.
And I remember the next show a couple of days later was in Birmingham, and I met one of his family members. And his family member asked him about his old tech. He's like, well, he's no longer here. This is Bernie. And he goes, oh, how's he doing? And I remember John clearly telling him to his face and in front of me, well, it's like Bernie and I were in a relationship and he cheated on me at the last gig. And now he's trying to regain my trust.
Oh, boy.
And I'm like, oh, thanks. Yeah.
Fuck.
But that's how he explained it.
Yeah.
But it was perfect. But since then, I've had a couple of bad moments, but that's the one. I was new to the camp.
Yep.
It was my first arena gig.
Yep.
And I wanted to. I was very new. I had been with this organization that long. And, And then this happened, and
it's
at
tough.
the time, John and I didn't have the relationship we have now.
Yeah.
I was
right.
The guy over on stage. It was, and I remember it bummed me out for weeks. It bummed me out, but in the end, I figured out what the issue was. It was a cheaply made bass,
right?
And it was something you wouldn't even notice.
Sure,
you find out by accident. This is what's causing
it.
But it never happened again.
Yeah, it's hard touch wood, right? It's hard when you haven't built up a relationship with someone and you've got a bunch of good gigs behind you where they're just like, whatever, it's a one-off. Shit happens. When you're brand new, fuck.
Yeah.
Oh, that's horrible. That was it. All right. Well, I'll trade you for one, and it's. Oh man! So back in the day with Shawn, we would do all of these Christmas festival things like the Jingle Ball stuff like that. Fucking oh god, those things.
The radio station.
The radio station gigs, man. Classic way to end the year with just a ton of stress. We were doing a big one at Madison Square Garden, and the MSG one they always broadcast live, TV and radio. And the way that those shows work, without getting too technical, is, well, one artist they have a turntable stage. So when one artist is on, you're line checking the other one, two completely separate line systems, whatever. And the idea is that when the turntable spins, by the time it's your set, you're line checked, ready to go. It spins, fucking, let's make it happen. And as part of that, I think this has changed subsequently, but the policy was always that the local production team that supplied all of the audio gear would do the line checks. I can get why, because they want to make sure that, you know, they have their people in their system, and especially for a show where it's broadcasting a big deal, there has to be some accountability somewhere. There isn't just some random guest engineer coming in and being like, oh yeah, I think this is all fine. Anyway, I can't remember who was on before us with Shawn, but we're on the backside of the turntable, line checking, getting ready to go, and the local guys there, headphones on, doing the thing. And I can hear what's happening. I think I had headphones on as well, so I can hear the conversation. And we're going through our lines. And, you know, I was super young at the time as well. Still, this is very early days. This might have been the end of, like, 2015, 14, something like that. And I could hear that something wasn't quite right, you know, with a guitar. And nowadays, I would have just stopped the whole goddamn thing, you know, and said, wait a second, I don't know if that was correct. Let's go back and take a listen to that line. Yeah. But I think I felt the weight and the pressure of the whole thing. And, like, there are guys a lot more experienced than me doing this line check. And I was like, well, they know what they're doing. You know, I'm not going to be the kid that comes in here and says, wait, hold the show. So I didn't. Turntable spins. I'm there. I mute the desk. Fucking Shawn appears as it spins, and there's like wild bangs and pops, like crazy. It sounds like the roof is caving in. Awful sounds. Shawn's looking over at the tech. Tech's freaking out. What the fuck's going on? And this is obviously on TV, on radio. This is a fucking nightmare. This is an absolute fucking nightmare. And I'm stood there like, well, I don't know what I can do about this. I'm just a passenger at this point. Anyway, it turns out there's like chaos ensuing down at the stage end, obviously, with people trying to figure it out. And luckily, one of the local guys, who is a good friend and great engineer, sort of figured out that 2 packs had been turned on at the same time on the same frequency. And if you've ever experienced what that sounds like, and they're competing for position in the spectrum, it's fucking awful, man. It is fucking terrible. And it got figured out as soon as that was realized. So someone ran up and switched off the offending pack or whatever it was, and it got sorted. But it was a fail. Like, it was an epic fail. You know what I mean? Like, turntable spins, kids screaming, everything's fucking cool. Here's Shawn, and then it's just like fucking wild noise. Oh, awful. One of the lowest points of my fucking career. Still to this day, I haven't had the balls to go back and find the broadcast. You know what I mean? I just don't know if I can watch it.
Looks like that's what we're doing tonight, guys.
Shawn Mendes, Jingle Ball, Madison Square Garden. Fuck me.
It's
you
funny.
know what?
I did a festival like that, a radio festival, where the preceding band, the guy didn't turn off his wireless and put him in the vault, and the vault rolled away. So it was on the same.
Same frequency. Yeah. Man,
it was a country band that I was doing, and
those things.
As the vault's sitting in the corridor, all the packs are on.
Dude.
And he was proud to say, like, I never turn my packs off.
Yeah, well, thanks, man. Thanks for fucking everyone else. But I learned a lot from it. Like, I learned a lot from it, and that was like the beginning of understanding when it's right to be assertive and say, hang on, like, something's wrong. I'm fucking calling this, versus, you know, let's let this play out and see.
It's really how you approach that situation. Like, they can, like you said, the local guys, they'll be like, oh yeah, shit, thanks for pointing that out. Mm-hmm. You know, but if you go in there and like, you fucking guys don't know what you're doing.
Oh yeah.
Which, you know, there are those guys.
Yeah, of
out
course.
there that come in there like that.
Of course. Yeah. Oh, I hate that shit, man. I hate it. And you know what? Even if guys don't know what they're doing, you going in there and reminding them of the fact isn't going to make your day better. Like, right. You know?
Right.
So
it pays off to be nice.
I think so.
You know, you can be mean in a nice way.
Absolutely.
And I don't mean mean, but you can be like,
you can get what you need to get done sometimes.
Hey,
but
guy, over under doesn't mean over your hand, under your elbow.
Right.
When you're rolling cable.
Right. There's this awesome Winston Churchill quote, and he says, "Tact is the ability to tell someone to go to hell and make them look forward to the trip." I really like that one. Yeah, totally. So,
what do you love most about this industry? I won't take up any more. By the way, we're on a bus.
Yeah.
We have 2 other roadies here that are they're dying to speak to each other.
I know. Put your clothes back on, Kev.
Yeah, they just want to have a conversation, but we've made them quiet while we do this on a bus. What do you love about this industry?
Oh, the money. It's the only reason I'm here.
I know, right? Right?
Oh my God, if it was, that wouldn't be good. What do I love the most about it?
Cocaine.
It is drugs. Yeah. It is fueling my drug habit. Well, anyway, thanks, Bernie. This was great. Good chatting, man. What do I love most about it? It's so lame, man, but I do love the people. Like, at the end of the day, like, even if you have great show, shit show, it is really nice getting back on the bus with you dickheads and, you know, having a beer and a chat. It really makes it. And I think that unless you've done what we do for any significant amount of time, it's impossible to truly get it, you know?
Because you really don't know someone's personality when they come in. Like you came in you, Dalton came in you, our sick sense of humor immediately came out. You jumped right in on it. I think Dalton was a little like, and then he came in on
I like it, man. Yeah. He's getting a little unhinged.
Now
I
he's
like
letting
this.
loose, but you came right in on it. Like you gave it just as good as we, you know.
Yeah. I don't know what to say. I mean, you've got to, if you don't have a good sense of humor doing what we do, then that is going to end very quickly, very badly. But no, I mean it genuinely. The people for me are what keeps me here. It's, you could be having the worst day, stuff at home's terrible, you know, your dog died, you know, then you have this awesome show with your friends and it's like, fuck the dog's dead, you know, it's all gone wrong and that's okay because I'm here with my people, you know, it's the best.
I think for me, the last few shows, we're 4 shows in.
Yeah.
But the crowds are amazing on this run.
They are.
And that makes it worth it when you see the crowds. When you see the crowds in the
back, man.
In the cheap seats.
Yeah, and they're going for it.
Shit, like it's just amazing. That's when you realize, okay, that's why I do this.
I agree, man. There's it's been a minute since I've turned around and looked at the back of a room, like you're saying, and seen so many people that are just having the time of their lives. Yeah. It's great.
It's the songs.
It's the songs.
It's timeless.
It's the songs, man. And the bass tones, Bernie. You're killing it.
I did want to talk to you about that. I didn't want to bring this up on the podcast, but you really got to do something about the snare trigger.
It's the trigger, isn't it? I know.
Snare trigger.
It's the snare trigger. Yeah. I talked to the drum tech.
Did you know we're getting a new one?
Really? A new snare trigger or a new drum tech or both?
Well, the snare trigger, it doesn't seem to be the snare trigger. It seems to be the drum tech triggering
the snare. Yeah, that's what it is.
I heard it in his bunk last night. He was triggering something.
I just saw the truck driver from Upstaging, and he said it's triggering on his truck at the moment.
Yeah.
Anyway. Can't win them all.
Well, man, thanks for your time. Do you have social media you'd like people to follow? Or
yeah, of course, man. Oh, this is super embarrassing. But yeah, if back in the day, I picked a pretty embarrassing Instagram handle, but if you want to follow me, it's at God of the Curly World. And for those that can't see me, have some curly hair going on.
Yeah, so. If you come to a show, just look at front of house. You can't miss him.
It's true. There all night.
Can't miss him. All right, man. The podcast is called Is Breakfast Included? We were having breakfast, which we just did.
Did really, yeah.
What would you have?
Oh, man. If I could have anything right now, I could probably go for a nice Eggs Benedict. Benedict. But like extra hollandaise.
Coffee?
Oh, dude. If my blood content is not like 50% coffee, then things aren't going well.
Right on, man.
Yeah.
It was good talking to you, Tom. Thanks for doing this, man.
Yeah.
All right.
Peace.
Right on. Tom Wood. I told you he was a great guy, right? Hilarious. He's a funny guy. He's a nice guy. It's so good to spend time with people like that on the road, especially when you're away from your real home. This becomes your home, and that's what happens. You meet people like Tom. If you want to follow him on Instagram, it's God of the Curly World. Go give him a follow. Check out what he's doing. I'm going to pitch it again. Is breakfast.bigcartel.com. I'm sorry. Is breakfast.bigcartel.com. Go check out our store. Buy yourself a shirt. Buy your friends a shirt. Buy your wife, your husband, your kids, your partner, whoever. Buy him a shirt, man. Go represent. All right, guys, I'm done. Have a great day. Talk to you next week.